Morning, everybody. Thank you and welcome back to another one of our Tuesday morning sessions. Today is October 3rd. My name is Stephen Boulden from 12.3 Marketing, and today we're going to be showing the history list feature of ACT. As you might have seen in my invitation email to this one, I do consider this to be one of the coolest features that ACT has added in recent years. It's very simple and basic, and yet there's a lot you can do that makes it something that's really good to be aware of. So the history list is here in your left-hand sidebar navigation column. This was added in ACT version 16, so anybody using v16 or above will have this. That was released in 2014, and to my knowledge, most of my accounts are certainly on this version already. So the history list is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It is a consolidated total viewing of all the histories in the database. Not just one contact or one company record, but virtually everything in one list that you can filter and view. And when you first open it up, it might take a moment to load because there could be a lot in there. We have some filters we can use, and these drop downs will let us pick if we're looking at history from just a given time period. So we have, for example, all history of all time. And pardon me that it looks like there's not much in here, as is typical on these sessions. I use my ACT demo database so as to not expose anybody's personal information to YouTube. So I don't have a complete listing of history to show you in here, but enough for the purposes of demonstration. Under the dates dropdown, we can look at all histories from all time. This will probably take a while to load. We're talking like 1 to 2 minutes sometimes, depending on how far back your database goes. We have today, future, last 7 days, 30, 90 days, quarters, and also custom, where you can choose certain date ranges. We have a types dropdown, which I will return to momentarily. And we have a select users dropdown, where we can choose which user's history are we looking at. Do I want to see history from just one person or from everybody at the company or a select group? Now, the real question is, so why would you want this? And what we have is, this has kind of become probably the most common report that people ask for. We do have a report section in ACT, and I have a session on that coming up. But the most common report people ask about is just wanting to know what is going on at the company. What are my salespeople doing? I want to see all of the phone calls that they've logged. I want to see all of the emails they've sent. If you are fortunate enough that your Outlook emails are recording history reliably now, which it does seem like that problem is beginning to be resolved. If you do have your emails being recorded, then it can be an excellent tool for a sales manager to view in the history list and see everything else that's going on. You can, if you are a salesperson and not just a manager, but somebody asks you, send me, I want a spreadsheet of all the phone calls you made this month, then you can simply go into here and pick out your dates. For select users, you can choose yourself, and then you can export this to Excel. And we can customize, and so these types of history, by default, if I say I want to see all history types, this is what you might see when you have everything checked off. So history has all sorts of different history types. We have things like phone calls, we have emails, we have system changes, we have e-marketing. There are, well, depending on how many things you might have customized, you could have dozens and dozens of different history types in here. If I choose all, using the handy all or none button down here, then I've got things like contact updated, contact linked, and a lot of it is kind of clutter. So you can choose if you wanted to see just certain types of histories, like activity histories only. If I select this checkbox, then I'm only seeing appointments, calls, emails, and meetings. In my mind, this is the real bread and butter, the important stuff that most commonly people are interested in. And if I then click back outside of the dropdown, then it will refresh and show me only activity histories that were done. Or similarly, you can see just emails by checking off the email and correspondence button. And there are these little check boxes next to each one where you can really keep expanding down into the submenus. If for whatever reason you wanted to see only calls that were, left a voicemail, then you can certainly do that. It's an awfully precise scenario, but They have a lot of flexibility and control over this. If you were to do this through a classic history report, like as was the case historically, before they added this feature, you kind of have to go through and choose your report settings and then keep running and outputting the report to a PDF and opening it every time. Whereas this, I find to be a lot more flexible and instantaneous. It gives you some freedom to just go down the list right away. But then the last thing that I think is extremely valuable for people to be aware of, for anybody that's concerned about keeping their database size small and efficient, are these system changes histories. System changes are generally a lot of clutter. ACT does have, and for some of these records, it's something you can't even turn off. It does provide a logbook of every time you create a contact, if you create a company, if you link the two of them together. You can have a setting in your define fields. See my previous session based on that. But if you have a custom field in your database, you can optionally have it record history every time it's changed, if there's an important field that you're tracking. But there's kind of all sorts of things in here. Data move, access change, contact linked. And I see it all the time. For those of you that might have databases with thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of contacts spanning a period of 10 or more years, if you load up your history list of all dates, all users, and just for system changes, it shows you a countdown here of those histories, and it's really not even that crazy that I've seen 100,000, 500,000. It can really add up over a long time. And if you have 500,000 history records in here, it is just plain text. So the text doesn't take up too much space, but in such large quantities, it certainly does. That does affect your entire database speed. It affects how fast ACT can open and load in certain situations. And so one thing that the history list is very useful for is finding all of these system changes at a glance. I can then use Shift Select to select multiple histories at once. So if I select, the bottom one, and Shift Select in between there, I get them all. And now I can delete just these selected histories, and out they go. Now that only took a snap of a second because there was only 23 of them. But for those of you that have 100,000 system changes in there, you might be well off. It might take you a couple minutes to delete them all. You probably want to do them in little chunks. And after that's done, then your database will be much smaller and more compressed. If you are going to do that, I also do recommend that after you get your histories deleted, you then do database maintenance. That's here under Tools, Database Maintenance, Check and Repair. This is just a little aside, not entirely related to the history list, but this check and repair is something that is worth doing periodically. The ACT scheduler, if you have that set up to do automated backups and maintenance, and yes, if I installed your ACT for you, then I did set that up. I do set this up to run automatically as well, but this check and repair utility will do an integrity check and a reindex. It basically does a data verification in your database, compresses everything back down to a good structure, and makes sure it's all in good health. So you can just check both those boxes and run. Again, that's under Tools, Database Maintenance, Check and Repair. If you think of your database kind of like a big Excel spreadsheet, you can delete rows out of that, but then you start ending up with blank lines and fragmented sections of the spreadsheet. And so the reindex and integrity check will kind of resort and compress everything back together. So if you are going to delete 500,000 history records out of the history list, it's probably a wise idea to do that afterwards, just to really drive your efficiency up. So that really sums it just about up for the history list. We have under the options menu over here, just like we have in other spots in ACT, there's this customize columns drop down over here to the right. And just like you can do in the contact list view or in the task list view, or really in a lot of the other ACT windows, this customized columns will show you other history records that are available. For example, an email address associated with the contact, a phone number, a date it was edited, regarding and details, which is just, it will have the details in there as well as just the regarding. And yeah, you can customize these fields for basically whatever you'd like to have in the view. You can export to Excel with the handy Export to Excel button. And if you do that, and there you are, something you can help work with in this view. Notice the columns that are exported are the exact same as the ones that I had shown in my view there. So if you want different columns in your spreadsheet, do it in ACT first and with the customized columns. There's a handy print option, but to be honest, I probably would not send this directly to the printer. I'd want to put it in Excel first and then work with it before I end up printing off a ton of copies of something I don't intend to. But yeah, I hope this was very insightful for everybody today. It's definitely worth checking out. It's excellent for both managers and users alike to really pull data back out of ACT, because the history is probably one of the most valuable things that you're putting in there. If you have your ACT working like a big old clockwork, you're entering contacts in there regularly as you meet them. You're scheduling all of your activity and appointments onto your own calendar. You're clearing those calendar activities off so it goes back into the history and the cycle continues. Then this history is going to have all of your most important data in it, and knowing how to work with it in the history list is a must-have. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. For those of you watching on YouTube, please see the description below the video to get the invites to attend these sessions live if you'd like to ask any questions or get to know me. Thanks and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.